In this true crime documentary, we uncover the shocking case of Misty Morse.
I answered the phone and then I heard her screaming, "She's dead. She's been murdered." I said, "What? Who is this? What are you talking about?" She said, "Misty, she's dead." I almost fell down. I mean, literally, I almost fell down. I said, "What happened?" She goes, "Somebody killed her. They found her in the water." I said, "The big question is why? What would drive someone to do something like that?"
On the night of Thursday, July 20th, 2000, Linda Morse was asleep when a sudden knock on her bedroom door pulled her out of her rest. Standing there in the doorway was her daughter, Misty, smiling as she showed off her outfit before heading out. Misty spun playfully, giving her mom a glimpse of her look, and then her cell phone rang. She stepped into the hallway to take the call. Moments later, she returned and told her mother she had to leave and that she wouldn't be coming home that night. Linda felt a rush of happiness, thinking her daughter was about to spend time with her new boyfriend, Bobby Cooper. She assumed this might even be their first night together. Bobby seemed to care about her, seemed to love her, but Linda had no way of knowing the truth. Misty wasn't going to meet Bobby, and she wasn't coming home that night. This would be the very last time Linda ever saw her daughter alive, because within just 2 hours, Misty Morse would be taken away from the life she knew and left in the waters. By the afternoon of July 23, 2000, a Florida Circuit Court judge named Jerry Lober stepped into his backyard in the quiet community of Merritt Island, Florida. He was planning to do a bit of yard work, but before he could get far, something unusual caught his eye. A large shape was floating near a patch of mangroves. At first, he thought it might be the body of a sea cow. But seconds later, his suspicion turned grim as the heavy summer air carried an unmistakable stench, the stench of death. Curiosity pulled him closer to the dock. What he discovered would etch itself into his memory forever. What the tide had delivered to shore was not an animal. It was the body of a young woman. She was completely nude, lying face down in the water. Both her hands and feet had been bound with rope and duct tape. More strips of tape wound around her head. When detectives from the Brevard County Sheriff's Office arrived, their first priority was to pull the victim from the water. The process was delicate, stretching over 5 long hours as they tried to preserve any trace of evidence clinging to her remains. But even a single glance told investigators she had been submerged for several days. The sweltering Florida heat and suffocating humidity had accelerated decomposition. Critical evidence was already lost to time. Her body was then transported to the medical examiner's office, where the horrifying task of piecing together the truth was about to begin. As investigators took a closer look at the evidence recovered with the body, a chilling picture began to form. The first detail was the rope. It wasn't ordinary rope. It carried a distinctive red and white diamond stitch pattern. Unusual, memorable, something that might just lead them back to its source. Then there were the torn grocery bags tied around the victim's feet. Detectives suspected that at one point they had been filled with rocks or some other heavy material. An attempt to drag the body down and keep it hidden beneath the water. Those bags were traced back to a Publix grocery store, while the rubber tubing used to bind them wasn't tubing at all. It was screen spline, the kind of material used to hold window screens inside their frames. And then came the duct tape. At first glance it looked ordinary, but its color stood out. It wasn't the usual gray or metallic. This tape was stark white. Investigators were especially interested in it because the adhesive might have preserved delicate traces. Fingerprints, skin cells, maybe even DNA. Even in the brutal aquatic environment where the body had been found. But hopes quickly dimmed. No fingerprints, no DNA, nothing, except for a few short black hairs clinging stubbornly to the tape. They couldn't belong to the victim. Her hair was brown with reddish highlights from dye. The hairs were sent off for testing. At that point, detectives felt confident. The body had carried plenty of physical evidence. Surely something here would crack the case wide open. But by the next morning, those hopes collapsed. The only real progress came from fingerprints. And even those were difficult to extract, given the body's condition after 3 days submerged in water. Still, the prints gave them a name. Misty Morse, 22 years old. The other evidence offered nothing. No DNA, no identifiable fingerprints, not even the hairs. The technology of the time could only confirm that the black hair came from a dog. The breed or the specifics were impossible to know. The autopsy revealed no gunshot wounds, no knife marks, no obvious trauma. That left only two terrifying possibilities. Either Misty had been strangled, or she had suffocated beneath the tape wrapped across her mouth and nose, or worse, she had been thrown into the water alive, left to drown. When investigators entered Misty's information into the motor vehicle database, they found her address. The home belonged to her mother, Linda Morse. Linda had already been battling fear. 3 days had passed without Misty returning home. She had gone out before and stayed away a night or two, but this time was different. A mother's intuition gnawed at her. Her chest felt tight. She was about to dial 911 to report her daughter missing when a knock rattled her door. It wasn't Misty. It was the detectives. The moment was devastating. But the horror only deepened when Misty's father, Bob Morse, received a phone call from his ex-wife. On the other end of the line, Linda's trembling voice delivered the unthinkable. Their daughter, the little girl they had raised, the young woman they loved, had been found murdered, her body dumped into the sea. While the family was drowning in grief, investigators were laser-focused on catching the killer. They asked Linda for permission to search Misty's bedroom. Almost everything appeared untouched, except for one detail. Misty's purse was sitting on a chair in her room. Inside, detectives found nearly everything except for her driver's license and her cell phone. This suggested two critical things. First, when Misty left home on the morning of July 20th, she hadn't planned to be gone for long. Second, she had likely been heading out to meet someone she trusted. Their suspicions only deepened after Linda recalled the last moments with her daughter. She remembered the short phone call Misty had taken just before leaving the house. When investigators pulled Misty's phone records, they discovered not one but two calls placed to her cell that night. The first call came just before midnight and lasted a few minutes. Then, after a short gap, a second call came in. This one lasted only seconds. Detectives concluded it was the very call Misty had answered in front of her mother. But there was a problem. Phone records 20 years ago were nothing like the data-rich logs investigators can access today. No location information, no originating number, almost nothing to work with. Based on timing and duration, detectives believed both calls had come from the same person. Someone who had arranged to meet Misty and then called again to say he had arrived. Since those were the last calls ever received on Misty's phone, investigators became convinced the caller was their suspect. Their working theory was simple: identify the man behind those calls and they would have their killer. But that was easier said than done. Misty was young, only in her early 20s and deeply social. Her circle of acquaintances stretched wide. Narrowing it down seemed impossible. That left detectives with only one option: return to the evidence pulled from Misty's body. And when they did, everything changed. Reviewing the crime scene photos, their eyes returned to the rope. After deeper research, their instincts were confirmed. It was a specialized rope, the kind used in sailing. Digging further, they realized the white duct tape wasn't duct tape at all. It was sail tape, the kind used to make temporary repairs on sails and canvas aboard boats. Then came the knots. The way the rope and screen spline had been tied wasn't random. At least one knot was one commonly taught to members of the U.S. Coast Guard and the Navy. Taken together with the fact that Misty's body had been dumped at sea, investigators pieced together a chilling profile. Their suspect likely had a maritime background. Perhaps he had even served in the military. For the first time, detectives had something solid. Their mystery man wasn't just anyone. He was someone with a history on the water, a man with military ties. And he was the very same man who had called Misty the night she left home for the last time. The first person investigators turned to for insight into Misty's personal life was her mother, Linda. She had lived with Misty, knew her best, and understood who had been closest to her daughter. Linda explained that while Misty was incredibly social, romantically her world had really revolved around just two men, Teddy Underwood and Bobby Cooper. According to Linda, Teddy was the brother of a coworker Misty had once been close with. But recently, Misty had pulled away from Teddy when she met Bobby. As Linda spoke, detectives began building a theory in their minds. To them, the picture was simple. Teddy had been jealous. When Misty left him for Bobby, rage had consumed him, and he killed her. But just as that theory began to solidify, Linda dropped a bombshell that shattered it completely. Misty had only known Bobby for 2 weeks. They had gone out just once. Suddenly, the picture grew murkier. Had Misty really cut Teddy off to pursue something with Bobby? Or was there something else at play? Something far more complicated? Investigators decided the only way forward was to dig into the backgrounds of both men. When they ran Teddy Underwood's record, a troubling history came to light. Multiple felony arrests, convictions for burglary, and even sexual assault. On paper, Teddy looked dangerous. Bobby Cooper, on the other hand, had no criminal record at all. But the shock came not from a rap sheet, but from Misty herself. Friends revealed that after her single date with Bobby, Misty told him she wasn't interested in seeing him again. She hadn't felt comfortable, but Bobby wouldn't accept it. He stayed in denial, refusing to believe it was over before it ever began. Now the waters were muddier than ever. One man with a dark criminal past, another who couldn't handle rejection. Both had motives. Both could be dangerous. The only way forward was to sit down with each of them and see who cracked. Teddy was called in first. His rap sheet made him the natural starting point. Detectives braced for a hostile, combative interview. Instead, they got the opposite.
Did she always pick you up, or did you ever drive over there?
I used my little car a few times.
Whose car was in front of your house?
The little blue Civic, that's my sister's car.
Had you guys talked about a future together?
Sort of. Not really nothing too crazy, because, she knows I'm not, trying to get married and nothing like that. We were a lot of life, even down to the basic stuff.
Just for the record, you provided us with 2 swabs, okay?
Yes.
One on each side of your mouth,
Yes.
each side of your mouth.
Yes.
And that was done of your own free will?
Yes.
Okay. You understand that's for DNA purposes?
Yes.
Teddy was open, cooperative, even eager to help. At first, investigators wondered if this was just an act, a clever performance to throw them off. But the more he talked, the less that seemed true. He gave them his DNA without hesitation. And soon, the biggest problem with Teddy became obvious. He simply didn't fit the profile. No military background, no knowledge of boats, no ties to the water. That left only Bobby Cooper. Detectives didn't waste time setting up a formal interview. They left Teddy and went straight to Bobby's house, and even before they reached the door, the first shock hit them. Parked in front of Bobby's home was a boat, the very detail their profile had predicted. Their prime suspect almost certainly had ties to sailing, and Bobby Cooper did. But what investigators didn't know was that the real shock was still waiting. Because once they finally sat down with Bobby Cooper, he would give them a piece of information that would turn the entire investigation upside down.
How long have you known Misty?
Almost 2 weeks.
And when was the last time you were at a house?
Tuesday. I went and had a couple drinks, and then we ended up coming back out here and watching a movie.
Okay. And you called her?
Yes. Called her cell phone every day from then on out until I heard yesterday.
Every day until when?
Until yesterday. Got off work early and I got a phone call from our friend Randy. And they told me what had happened. He told me that they had found her floating in the river.
During his interview, Bobby was surprisingly candid about his feelings for Misty. He admitted she had made excuses not to see him again after their date, but insisted it wasn't a big deal. He claimed he had simply tried reaching out to her a few times before hearing the devastating news of her death. It was clear to investigators that Bobby was emotional about Misty. Still, they wondered if he was truly as calm about her rejection as he claimed. Their doubts only deepened when, seemingly out of nowhere, Bobby revealed something shocking. He had Misty's driver's license. The very item detectives knew was missing from her bedroom. In the middle of the conversation, Bobby pulled it out and handed it over. He explained that on their date, Misty's outfit didn't have pockets. She'd asked him to hold onto her license for safekeeping and then simply forgot to take it back. Detectives weren't sure whether to believe him. So once again, they requested permission to search his home. Bobby agreed, but just like with Teddy, the search turned up nothing. As they were leaving, one detective paused near Bobby's boat. He studied the knots tied along its ropes. They didn't match the knots used on Misty's bindings. Bobby admitted he had no military background. It looked like another dead end. But then, just as the detectives prepared to leave, Bobby dropped a detail that would change everything. He said that during his date with Misty, she had confided in him about an ex-boyfriend she'd been with for 2 years, someone who, according to her, had treated her badly. Bobby couldn't remember his name, but he thought it might matter. At first, investigators dismissed it. If this ex was important, surely Linda, Misty's mother, would have mentioned him already. Still, they decided to check. When they called Linda, she immediately gave them a name: Brent Huck. She admitted she hadn't mentioned him earlier because, as far as she knew, Misty had broken things off long ago. But then she added something critical. Brent Huck wasn't just any ex. He was a former Navy SEAL. The detectives froze. They already knew of Brent. In the neighborhood, his reputation was larger than life. He flaunted his wealth, clashed with police more than once, and carried himself like the ultimate bad boy. The kind women were often drawn to. As they dug deeper, the picture grew darker. While Misty had officially ended things with Brent about a year earlier, they still saw each other casually. Even worse, Brent was now working as a boat captain. That meant he had access to a vessel, extensive nautical knowledge, and a military background. He checked every box in the profile investigators had built. The burning question now was chilling. Was Brent the man who had called Misty the night she left home? When detectives finally brought Brent Huck in for questioning, they tried to play it carefully. They offered him comfort, a false sense of security, hoping he might let something slip. But what they got was arrogance.
Right now, we're kind of at a loss. We're grasping at straws, trying to get any information we can on Misty, and we feel you're probably a pretty good source in all what she does and who she hangs out with and this kind of stuff. You're not in any trouble. You're not under arrest. You're free to leave at any time you want.
Oh, I'm
Okay, you're on your free will, so.
more than willing to help. That was one of my first questions was, like, you know.
We just appreciate you coming down and filling in the blanks. Okay, that's what we need, is someone who knows her.
Brent spoke with disdain, oozing superiority. And to the detectives, that was perfect, because arrogance made him reckless, and recklessness could be the very thing that forced the truth out into the open.
What was your relationship with her?
We started dating from the time I met her. She came to live with me in my house for a while, or stay with me in my house, not really live. The relationship deteriorated, and then I broke up with her and she slept with my roommate. At that point, I was done with her. I did go to sleep with her after that.
What about other boyfriends?
She dated some guy, she said she was dating some hockey player. And I would never got a name out of her.
From around here?
She's up in Orlando, apparently, one of the pro teams. I don't know. It's just I talked to her enough to have sex, and then I'd leave.
So what do you think?
My first reaction, she got into something she couldn't handle. She got into either somebody got hot with her and flipped, or she picked up the wrong job. I mean, I don't know if she's for sure she's working over in that, or she's working on something.
When was the last time you actually talked to her? On the phone or anything like that?
Wednesday
Morning, night, day?
Wednesday, late night. Probably the Thursday sometime, early morning.
Brent Huck finally admitted to making the late-night calls. He claimed he'd heard rumors that Misty was telling mutual friends she was pregnant with his child. Brent said he had called her to confront her, to demand she stop spreading the story, because he was now in a serious relationship with someone else. He insisted he never actually met Misty that night. According to him, the second call was nothing more than him reassuring her that things between them were fine, but detectives didn't buy it. The autopsy had proven Misty wasn't pregnant. Brent didn't know that. Investigators believed the rumor had panicked him. He called Misty, arranged to meet her, and that explained why she'd seemed so excited when she spoke with her mother that night. She thought she might be rekindling her relationship with Brent. Instead, she was walking straight into a trap, just like they had with the other suspects. Detectives asked to search Brent's property, and like the others, he agreed. But unlike the other searches this time, investigators struck gold. In Brent's kitchen, they found Publix grocery bags. The manufacturing codes matched the torn bags recovered with Misty's body, produced in the same month and year, from the same distributor. In his garage, detectives uncovered screen spline, the very same material tied around Misty's ankles. Lab tests showed it had been cut from the exact same production machine. Then, on top of a cabinet, they discovered a roll of sellotape. Forensic analysis proved the adhesive was identical to the tape wrapped around Misty's head and face. Finally, both inside the home and beneath the dock on his property, divers recovered sailing rope. Not only was it the same type as the one used to bind Misty, but the knots were tied in the exact same manner. When the lab results came back, every comparison lined up. Rope, tape, spline, bags. All roads pointed directly to Brent Huck. Investigators were convinced they had their man. They carried the mountain of evidence to the district attorney's office expecting a green light. But instead of celebration, they got a gut punch. The DA wasn't impressed. He argued the case was too risky, too circumstantial. Without something stronger, something undeniable, a conviction wasn't guaranteed. The investigators were stunned. They were told plainly, if you want any hope of putting Brent Huck away, you need more. The problem was, there was nothing more. So detectives tried one last angle. They reached out to Brent's girlfriend, told her everything. To their surprise, she agreed to help. She placed a call to Brent.
Yeah, they're really serious about you.
I know.
Is there anything you want to tell me now before it comes out later?
There's no way about it. I'm not talking on my phone. Period.
Are you getting mad at me now?
I'm not gonna talk on the phone. If you want to get down to the bottom of this, come talk to me. God!
It's that serious.
Goodbye.
Brent Huck knew the police were circling. He knew the evidence was stacking up. But as the days passed, momentum faded. Leads dried up. The case went cold, and it stayed that way for more than 2 years, until a breakthrough in technology handed detectives a witness no one ever expected. In 2002, a laboratory in California pioneered a new technology capable of identifying the breed of an animal from trace evidence. The results had already been accepted in court there. When detectives in Florida learned of this, they immediately reached out to the same lab. They handed over the short black hair that had been stuck to the tape around Misty's body. The results were groundbreaking. The hair was confirmed to be from a German Shepherd Rottweiler mix. That detail was the key that unlocked the case, because Brent Huck owned a dog named Chiba, a German Shepherd Rottweiler mix, and in a cruel twist of fate, that dog had been a gift from Misty herself, given to Brent on their 1-year anniversary. On October 23, 2002, Brent Huck was arrested and formally charged with the murder of Misty Morse. At trial, prosecutors argued that Brent killed Misty after hearing rumors she was pregnant with his child. Afraid this would destroy his new relationship, he lured her into a deadly trap, disguising it as a chance to get back together. To build their case, prosecutors leaned on every piece of circumstantial evidence detectives had uncovered. And then came the final blow, the DNA match from Chiba's hair. In May 2003, Brent Huck was convicted of first-degree felony murder and felony kidnapping. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms. As of this recording, he remains incarcerated at the Appalachia Correctional Institution in Florida. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime documentaries. See you in the next video.